Now here guys, get it on. Welcome back to Fast You Fall. What do I? Fiddle out, toe and shishin max capital cycles. So I'm sorry it's been a few weeks since I did one of these. I've been sort of just training and this feels weird. It feels weird that I haven't done one of these for a while, so it feels weird talking and doing the whole thing. But I'm gonna try something different, which is just make this a little shorter than normal. You probably get a bit tired of me hearing me going for half an hour. Can I say a couple of things first, which is I was at a race a few weeks ago and some guys came up to me and were talking about stuff I said about how many hamburgers worth of energy you consume in a race and stuff like. So what I like to do is to put in perspective, in a race when you have a power meter, it very accurately determines your caloric consumption during the event, because it can figure out your power, figures out how many calories it would require, and I like to put it in perspective by comparing that to how many roughly McDonald's hamburgers that would be oxidized. I know that's not a wildly scientific metric, but I quite like it. It gives you a sort of an idea. Anyway, and it was cool that people came up and they said that they enjoyed that, so thank you guys. And sort of on that topic, I was going to talk a little bit about thoughts and feelings, cycling as a whole, and the last couple of events I've done. So here we go, let's look at what I've done. I did you don't really need to look at the data. I mean, I've got the data here. The last race I did was the last one before Christmas was the club 18 kilometre TT champs, which I won, Liverton circuit, 3 laps, average 44k an hour, 44.6, that's pretty good. Power was only 318 watts as a whole, 24 minutes 28 seconds, and I don't really need to go into it. I think the pacing was pretty good. You can see it's pretty flat. You know, TT up to power in position within 30 seconds. And try to keep your pacing flat. Know your target power. But my drag on this is reduced down to, I think I figured it out, down to about 0.22. Now, what I'm saying is, it's like I'm a 78 kilo guy at the moment. That's pretty good. And a lot of that's been to do with I think 2 things actually. I think the Giro Arrowhead helmet that I got, Arrowhead helmet I got, is a little slipperier than the one before that, the Giro Selector. For me, just how I hold my head, that seems to be better. And also think, you know, like a lot of work I do with my riders is around hand and arm position. And ultimately, kind of the higher you can have that out in front of you and your head as close to your hands as possible, that's going to prevent error. That's what I did, and reduce my drag. So not a huge amount of power. Guys producing more power than me, but I still won because of that drag. So that was good. Let's maybe just talk about so I did some training over Christmas and New Year, and that's all really focused on increasing my aerobic economy and aerobic threshold as high as possible. And there's no way around it really. The only way that has good evidence to do that is by spending a lot of time in your optimal aerobic zone. That's between 1 millimole and 2 millimoles of lactate per litre of blood. Fit lab testing tells you what that is. And then sometimes pushing up a little bit into what's called your subthreshold or sweet spot zone, or around 3 millimoles of lactate to push up your aerobic threshold. But I'm only training, I mean, if I look at my volumes here, between 11 to 12 to 13, maybe almost, or 12 and a half hours, 10 hours, not huge amounts of time, but just quality. Okay, and then this last week I went to the Hub Tour. So the Hub Tour, if you haven't tried it, is a good race in Hawke's Bay, and a lot of people sort of mentioned that to me that it was a lot of fun over the last couple of years, especially Hugh Buke, who raves about it every year, so I tried it. This year we had a criterium stage 1 in Friday evening on the waterfront, which was a lot of fun. A lot of people came out to watch. Basically, just on the waterfront there, sprint straight down the waterfront, turn straight back. Lots of crashes. By the way, doing B grade. Lots of crashes. People putting pedals down. I ended up with the front group and crossed the line 5th or something like that. My whole goal with this whole stage race was just to not lose any time in the road stages and to take as much time in the time trial as possible. Look at that, the normalised power in that crit, 337 watts for about 31 minutes. And I don't know, did I learn something out of that? I think ultimately it's kind of like a miniature version of a road race, and that you just be positioned well. Position is everything in a crit. Now we'll leave it at that. There's lots to know, but in a crit, be near the front, because in a corner, everything slows down towards the back of the field. It strings out, and if you're not near the front, you might get spat. Stage 2, a road race. Where is it here? Road race circuit here in near Crownthorpe. What was it? Not super hilly. What do we did? Just over 2 hours, 83 point something Ks, 1945 kilojoules. That is, I don't know, about 7 or 8 hamburgers. 38.6 kilometers an hour. Average power 251. Normalized 314. That's quite high. A hard pace in all of these. But the climbing, 193 meters. So it's not a lot of climbing there. There was lots of action for the KOMs and the sprints, which I was outclassed in, so I couldn't really compete in. Stage 3 of TT. So my whole notion of this race was conserve and try to do a good time trial. I did. I was 3rd in the stage. Time trial of 17.4 Ks. Did 24 minutes 54 seconds. 42k an hour. A little bit rolling. Average power 361 for a normalised 362. So very just straight effort there. I was quite happy with that. Took 3rd in the stage and took 2nd in the GC. There was a guy about 40 seconds ahead of me, Jack Carswell, under 17 guy. Me in 2nd, about 40 seconds back. And about 4 seconds back from me, Charlie Tattersfield. On stage 4, I lit it up super early, literally from the gun, to see if I could establish a break and try to get that 40 seconds back off Jack. Didn't work. Went away with Charlie Tattersfield and one other guy who I don't know. And we were hauling pretty good there. You see this first part from where I lit it up, maybe for the first 20 minutes. Yeah, an EP of 372 watts. Pretty strong, but ultimately we did not survive. Charlie doing a lot of work. He got some KOM points out of that effort, which was good. So he consolidated 3rd. I consolidated 2nd. Jack Carswell did a lot of work to bring us back. Did really well to take the yellow. So what did I learn? Well, I think I learned ultimately that for a rider like me, that was probably not a bad tactic. I don't have the explosive strength or the sprinting ability to beat guys who got the sprint jersey, like Brooke McDonald of downhill fame was there, took the sprint jersey. You can see that pro downhillers have very high bursting strength, and you could see it there. So he got the green jersey, and there's some young guys there who are very good. Point is, if you're not really sure, maybe going to a race like this, a little stage race, a bit like this weekend, the Wellington Masters Tour, ultimately, it's not a bad playing of the odds to not lose anything in road race stages and try to claw it back in a TT. If you're a more explosive rider, you might want to go for a Jersey, KOM, or the sprints. That's not for me. So I think it worked out about as good as it could. All right, so coming up, Masters 2-day tour this weekend. As I say, I'm going to halve the length of this. Oh, sorry, I'm going a little longer than that. I'll try not to. So similar scenario, except it starts with the TT, and that's all important. It's only short. It's only about 8Ks, but you know, it's only three. It's a relatively small stage race, and the thing is, what the time differential based on that TT could determine quite a lot about how you ride the rest of it, and ultimately, regardless, you should do as well as you can. So I'm thinking about understanding your target power, being down in a low error position, deleting draggy stuff from your bike, cages and stuff, wearing an aero helmet if you've got one. If you're allowed to use a disc, use it. All these little things which might only add up to, overshoes, might only add up to a few seconds, but that could completely change what happens tactically in the race for the next few road stages. So maybe the takeaway is do as well as you possibly can. You know, if you feel like you're fading, that couple of seconds that you get back at the end of the TT could change the whole race. All right, so I won't talk about the events coming up that much. It's going to be, for me, a mix of interesting events from around Wellington, going to the Nationals in Timaru this year. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the course. Centre Champs, Masters Club events, a couple of the Masters games, stuff like that. I'm looking at doing a Samoa in August, and maybe even a stage race in the USA. A guy invited me to, which is I think in September, which I'm excited about. So that's what's possibly on the menu for me. So last thing, a couple of thoughts about I just noticed these thoughts crossing my mind, and I think they might ring true to a lot of you. And I just thought if I say it, then it might be good for all of us. So when you've been racing for a few weeks, you sort of forget these things, but when you come back to it, you remember what it's like to turn up and race, and the thoughts and feelings that go along with that. And the one that probably rings through the most is inadequacy. So, I think this is probably a fairly normal feeling, where you always kind of feel like you're not good enough, and that can be in the sense that you feel like you haven't done enough training or something. That's a very normal feeling, and it's almost like it doesn't really go away no matter how much you do. Maybe you can't really do anything about that. You just got to go into the battle with what you've got and take the opportunity, usually over Christmas, New Year break and stuff, to do those miles. If you don't, all is not lost. Some quality training will still get you a long way. But here's what I'm saying is I don't think, there's almost no one, even guys that do 20 hours a week, 15, 20 hours a week, they never sit there and go, you know what, I've done enough. It's always more. I bumped into a guy at the stage race up in Hawke's Bay on the weekend, and he was doing 5 hours that day, and he'd done 5 hours the day before or something, and I thought, and he's sort of tired, and he has this notion in his mind that more is better. I think we all know, anyone that knows a little bit about training kind of knows intrinsically that that's not true. More is not always better, because you'll get burned out. But it's one thing to say that, and it's one thing to feel it. And I think you're probably trying to avoid that feeling of inadequacy. Guys, it doesn't go away. That's what I think, and I see this from a lot of people. Ignore that, turn up with what you've got, do as good as you can. It never goes away. But there's also the other sort of side of the inadequacy part is you always sort of feel like, I don't know, you haven't got, I'll just put it the way I feel it. I'm not saying this is right. You don't have a right to line up on the start line or something. You don't have it's like, who am I to do this thing? You know, I'm not as good as these other people, or I'm sort of getting in their way, or something like that. And I've been racing for a while. You know, I've been racing bikes in some way or another for 40 plus years. So I don't, you know, as far as I can tell, I try not to be a super douchey rider. I try to be thoughtful about those around me. So I'm pretty sure it's not true, but you always feel bad. You know, if I've had a situation before where I didn't see some debris on the road and I didn't point it out, which, by the way, can happen pretty easily if you've got rain on your glasses, or it's raining at all and you're going fast and you're in the drops. You know, sometimes you're in the drops, you feel like it's not really safe to take your hands off the bars anyway, to point out an object or debris on the road. And a local guy came up and said, "Oh, why didn't you effing point it out?" And, you know, and at the time, you think it's all your fault and you think you're really bad. But that's part of bike racing, is you're not always going to point out everything all the time perfectly in time for people. Certainly try. But all I'm saying is I don't always feel like it's safe to take my hands off the bars. I don't always see everything on the road. Now, I'm probably not saying anything that everyone else hasn't thought before. But the thing is, I want you to know that I feel the same way about it. And I'm sure most people feel the same way about it. It still makes them feel bad. But that's part of bike racing. And you know what? If the guy in front of you fails to point something out, there could be a lot of reasons why he hasn't done that. All the stuff I mentioned about not seeing it, taking your hands off the bars. How about not be a douche and not swear at that person? Because that person might be relatively new. It might freak them out. They might have a lot of thoughts in their mind about it that you don't even know. It's not, you know, there's a time and place for aggression. It's not, I think, what it is. So guys, that one about pointing stuff out, I felt it. There's also the one where, you know, maybe I'll leave it at this, is positioning. I think, like, anyone who's been bike racing for a while, like I talked about in the crit and stuff, this notion of not pulling too much on the front, because you don't want to use too much energy, but doing a reasonable amount and staying near the front so you can respond to attacks, is pretty bread and butter bike racing. But, you know, a lot of times I think the reason people don't do what is, on the face of it, pretty obvious, is that they're scared of being up there and being in the way. And I don't know that I have a remedy for that. If you're genuinely a safety conscious rider, you're not really obviously super weak, you can pull through reasonably, there is no reason you shouldn't be up there, whether you're a beginning rider or not. And it's really important. And if sometimes you will hear, it's very normal to hear riders in the bunch say, I don't really have it so much to me, but I have heard it to riders where they don't come through on the pace line. Sometimes they have been sworn at. I don't like hearing that. Just, if you want to come through. That's fine. Don't be angry at someone else because they haven't. There might be lots of reasons for it. And I've had that feeling before too, feeling very weird that you've missed a turn or something. Well, I think that's all normal, and that's all okay to do in bike racing. I just wanted to put that stuff out there so you know that it's not you. I think everyone feels this way. And to be honest, if you didn't have these sort of thoughts, that would probably make you a psychopathic narcissist. You know, it's always the narcissists who don't do that self-referential check. Have you ever noticed, if someone criticizes you and you're a good person, your instant reaction is to look at your actions and be critical of yourself and what you've done or could improve on. And it's always the narcissists who point the finger instantly at everyone around them. And I always wondered about that. I think if you're a good person, it's very normal to have those feelings. If you're not a narcissist, and it's good. It's good to review you and your actions first, and that's healthy. But don't take that too far and assume you're wrong. I think it probably applies to a lot of things, not just bike racing. Right, that's what I think. So I am looking forward, guys, to seeing you on the weekend at the 2-day tour. Come see me, grab some cramp fix. I have a discount code in the notes of the video, 10% off, free shipping, also on Biomaxa. Come get some freebies from me, come get a FitLab bottle. I like racing against all of you guys, and I enjoy seeing you there. Stay really safe. I'm looking forward to the next 8-12 weeks or so, because it's going to be lots of good racing, good weather. We're going to have some good times. As always, this is brought to you by FitLab, Tailwind Nutrition, Biomax and Capital Cycles. If you'd like a training plan from me or testing, you can email me, steve@fitlab.co.nz. Go to our website, fitlab.co.nz. Go to biomaxa.co.nz, tailwindnutrition.co.nz, capitalcycles.co.nz. See you on the weekend, guys.